So last week, Scandinavian Chemotech provided an update on the clinical strategy and the progress made in ongoing clinical trials. And today we have invited CEO Mohan and the Chief Medical Officer Suhail Mufti to further elaborate on this strategy and the roadmap ahead. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Mohan. The overall strategy. Can you just give a brief background for those who are not familiar with the strategy backdrop in India as such?
Absolutely. But before that, let me just ask Dr. Suhail to give a little short, brief introduction to yourself. You've been online with us before, but not so frequent. So perhaps there are audience here that are not familiar about who you are and your background. Suhail.
Thank you so much, Mohan. Myself, Dr. Suhail Mufti. I am an oncopathologist from India and trained into translational oncology from the University of Edinburgh. I've been with Chemotech for over 2 years now, taking care of the clinical strategy, clinical operations, and the medical affairs at Scandinavian Chemotech for tumor-specific electroporation. It has been an exciting journey of 2 years where we've taken tumor-specific electroporation into the earlier paradigms of therapy, and I'm excited about it. We'll discuss with Mohan quite in detail further in this session. Thanks, Mohan.
So last year we made a little shift in our strategy. We changed our focus to continue our relationship with AIIMS Jodhpur, of course, but also to improve our relations to other public funded and operated hospitals and universities in India. Instead of going and in parallel with the AIIMS trial to promote ourselves to the large corporate or operated hospitals. Suhail, could you explain a little bit for those who doesn't know India, why it's so important for a company with an new innovation and a new potential paradigm in oncology, why it's so important to build our relationship with the public healthcare system?
Well, right, Mohan, this has been the correct strategy, I think, because in India, and primarily if you see even in other parts of the world, the oncology patients, the cancer patients, are being catered to by the larger university hospitals. They may be university hospitals or they may be nodal cancer centers, but they're all public, not private. This is a major move, and the number of patients in these hospitals and the type of patients in these hospitals represent the complete epidemiology of cancer and different cancers in India and worldwide. So this is the correct move. The other aspect, the correct aspect of it is that most of the innovations either are taken up by the university hospitals to begin with, or they are the places where the innovation tends to arise from. And the private hospitals are more follow the NCCN guidelines. The research comes to them later once validated by the nodal centers. So even though larger clinical trials are done by the private enterprise as well, but the bigger share of that is with still the public sector, which are the university hospitals.
Okay, thank you so much for that. But I think everybody in the European market that listening, wondering, is there money in the public healthcare for a new technology like TSE?
Well, why not? Because in these public hospitals, the funding is not only from the patients out of pocket, but a good amount of patients do have the payers, the insurers who pay, and secondly, they may be having funding from the government schemes. They may be government employees, corporate employees, which are funded by either the government or their insurers. So there is a good amount of patients in the public sector why the payments are possible.
Thank you so much. We have now, since more than 1 year, had an ongoing trial at AIIMS Jodhpur, one of the university hospitals operated under the government. Could you just briefly give an update of where we are in that? And I also believe that it's perhaps not known to everybody that clinical trials are often, you separate the patient in different arms. What does arm mean in a clinical trial? And what are those arms? How can you describe those arms and the importance of them for the TSE trial at AIIMS Jodhpur?
A very basic understanding of clinical trials is that we have the type of patients, and the type of patients are as per the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So every drug or a device or a therapeutic or a therapy, any type of an intervention is taken up for different type of patients. It may be a single or multiple type of patients. If we have only one type of patients, it's called one arm. If there is a different type of patients included in a single study where you do a comparison between these arms, that's what we call an arm, the type of patients which we compare with. As far as TSE is concerned, very few medical device companies or very few medical device therapies may include multiple arms. But I would like to highlight here that TSE is including both the drugs and the device together. It has multimodal action of action. It has indigenous action on immunomodulating the tumor microenvironment, and then it through to the drug as well. It has a cytostatic or action as well inside the cell. So since it's more than one modality together, we have to include multiple arms and put in the exclusion criteria in such a way that we know the correct positioning of TSE and make the right type of patients have the benefit of TSE. So in TSE, we have three arms now. Previously, we used to have only one, which we call arm A, and only in the palliative care setting in head and neck. But now we have taken it to the curative paradigm. I think any of the ablative therapies haven't taken up in this direction so far. But since TSE is not ablative, has multimodal action, we have included two more arms, B and C. In both of these arms are basically in the first recurrence, while the intention is still cure. The patients are still eligible as per NCCN guidelines, either for radiation therapy or for immunotherapy. So arm B includes the patients who are eligible for radiation, have received suboptimal radiation previously, or have received no radiation. So we're giving TSE before that. And in arm C, we're giving it before chemoradiation if the patients are eligible for that. So we are step ahead from the ablative therapies. We are able to take TSE in the curative paradigm, and the cytoreduction, the decrease in the tumor mass, is so substantial, as we have seen even in the pancreatic trial in Ukraine, up to 50%, which is a landmark finding. So these are the arms. I'm sorry to be a little bit more technical, but I'm trying to be as simplistic as possible.
Thank you very much. From this clinical trial, how do you between us and AIIMS Jodhpur to continue?
Well, this has to be a long-term relationship, and it is going to be a long-term relationship with AIIMS. I thank AIIMS Jodhpur investigator team and the management there that they've been so supportive in exploring TSE in their hospital in the oncology department. We have had a good experience with them as far as the trial is concerned, as far as getting the quality patients, good number of patients is concerned. And after completing with head and neck, We're taking it to breast cancer, locally advanced breast cancer, and the investigators have also shown interest into taking it with us to deeper tumors like pancreatic, as we did in Ukraine. And even for deeper tumors where an R0 resection, that means a complete resection is not possible, like retroperitoneal sarcomas. So they would like to take it to the operating room and do as much as cytoreduction or decreasing the tumor as much as possible, which are not possible by surgery alone. So they would be interested into other longer probes. They would be interested into newer modalities of TSC in combination with, say, immunotherapy, in combination with targeted-based therapy. So, in a nutshell, it's going to be a long-term relationship of good science with AIMS Jodhpur.
Suhail, when you say long term, I mean, you state in the press release that the pilot studies is undergoing, or discussions regarding pilot studies is undergoing for deep-seated tumors. What is realistic expectation on when these can materialize in any way?
Well, as far as the head and neck cancer study is concerned, we're going to complete it by the Q1 of 2025. And as far as the breast cancer is concerned, we're going to submit it to the ethics committee towards the beginning of the next year. And once we've done with breast cancer, then towards the mid or let's say the second half of next year, we're going to discuss with them as far as the deeper tumors are concerned. So it's going to be, the deeper tumors are going to be towards the end of next year. And the global strategy is likewise.
Thank you, Suhail, for that. I would like to ask you also a question regarding your own view and vision of TSE as a modality to use together with immunotherapy. We talked about this a long time, and Chemotech is more or less almost an immunotherapy company today. Why do you say that, and how could you, in layman terms, explain that to the audience?
Well, this is a complete paradigm shift of looking at electroporation, and tumor-specific electroporation is advanced enough to be multi-modal as far as the mechanism of concern is concerned. It's dynamic as far as the field of electroporation is concerned. So the effect is multimodal. We always talk about increasing the intracellular concentration of the drug. We talk about the vascular locks which happens, but we actually don't focus, or previously has not been focused, of course with some paucity of information about immunology as well, which is advanced. Immunology is advanced in the last decade or so quite a bit, and our understanding of tumor microenvironment has evolved. So now we know that there's so much of immunomodulation, or sometimes we say cool to hot. This is a hot topic in oncology these days. Low dose radiation converting cold to hot tumors. There's a similar increase in tumor infiltrating lymphocytes in the tumor, in barren tumors like the pancreatic tumors, where the microenvironment is so unresponsive. TSE converts cold to hot tumors and immunomodulates it by increasing the tumor infiltrating lymphocytes in the tumor microenvironment, making a favorable environment for tumor kill, for tumor cells to kill. So this is a really exciting field where we need to understand the histologies, the histotypes, which are going to be more benefited, less benefited, benefited more in combination, benefited more standalone, or benefited more in combination in sequencing it with radiation. So all this is going to be evolving science with TSE in coming days. We know in oncology, it's not one size fits all. We cannot generalize the knowledge. We have to keep on collecting data. We have to do multiple studies, both basic, translational, and clinical. So I think it's going to be an exclusive oncology domain itself.
Thank you so much for that answer. I still want to ask you to simplify even more. How big and what are the further opportunities that you might see about TSE making these cold tumors hot? As you describe it, that the immunotherapy needs to be, the tumors needs to be hot for the immunotherapy to really be, to be able to use its full capacity. And do you see parallel or areas in the industry for TSE further on this road?
Well, to simplify it a little further before I answer this question, I would say that as we know in oncology, there is chemotherapy, there is radiation, there is immunotherapy nowadays, there is target-based therapies, and there are a combination of these as well coming nowadays. And now the next paradigm is going to be TSE. So there are specific buckets you can put in, like you do a lot of type of chemotherapies, but you call them all chemotherapies, the small molecules primarily. And then you have immunotherapies, they're biologicals primarily. Now, another paradigm is going to be TSE. So that shows the importance of TSE in itself in the larger perspective. So this should answer that where we are heading to. We're creating another domain for cancer treatment. And then there's going to be a lot of science around the positioning of drugs, which drugs to use, which histotypes to use, converting cold to hot tumors, adding it to immunotherapy to increase the efficacy of say safe or checkpoint inhibitors, which have an efficacy of around 20 to 30% at the moment. And the industry is looking for those immunomodulators, which may be non-oncology drugs or devices, or for any therapeutic which would boost or strategies which would boost the immunotherapy experience or efficacy. So same way, TSE is going to be mixed and matched with other therapies in the complete holistic treatment of cancer.
I would like to ask first the last word to Jonathan. Maybe you have something that you'd like us to explain a little bit further before we end the session.
I have one question to both of you. I mean, we talk a lot about AIMS, Jodhpur, and the trials there, but are these clinical trials, the success of Chemotech in India and TSE in India, is that completely dependent on the success of AIMS Jodhpur?
Well, this question is very important, and I think it's very important for us to understand that we are into devices, and we are into a type of the device wherein we use a drug as well. So even though we're purely governed by the regulations, the regulatory of the devices, but there are some regulations which sometimes touch us from the drug side as well. So if we take only the device industry in perspective, we don't need to do so large clinical trials as are done by for drugs or biologics. So there are a set of different rules as far as medical device is concerned, and we are abiding by those. The regulatory team is fully compliant as far as the regulations for medical devices is concerned. The other aspect is that tumor-specific electroporation is already approved as a device, as a modality for superficial tumors in India and worldwide as well. So the trials which we are doing in India are basically an extension of label studies. So we're doing the basic and the clinical studies together so that we can better understand the therapy. So that is the reason. Otherwise, even for, say, we are taking head and neck patients, we are fully authorized to treat any of the head and neck patients or breast or any superficial tumor outside of the clinical study as well. And I would like to mention here, as is written in the clinical update as well, we have analyzed the data recently of even the patients who have been treated as at AIMS Jodhpur outside of the clinical study. So in their usual clinics, and same is happening everywhere. And world is recognizing the importance of real world data rather than doing full protocol studies. That's exactly what we are doing as well. We're collecting the real world data so that we can data mine and make sense out of it to further take TSE to different type of tumors. So we are fully compliant with regulations, Jonathan, as far as medical device regulations are concerned.
So Suhail, where do you see TSE in 5 years' time?
Thanks, Jonathan, to ask this question again. I think I just now hinted towards this, what the future would entail for TSE and where do we see it coming in the next half a decade or a decade. As I said, we know there is chemotherapy for cancer, there's immunotherapy now for cancer, targeted therapies for cancer, radiation for cancer. This is going to be the next paradigm for cancer. There's going to be TSC for cancer. And then there's going to be a mix and match of therapies for different tumors. This is going to be the new paradigm.
Mohan, Suhail, thank you very much for joining today. And we look forward to welcoming the audience again here shortly to, update again on what we are doing here on the clinical side going forward.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for hosting us today. And thank you, Suhail, for connecting from India.
Thank you.